When I'm revising a piece of work, what I try to do is I try to concentrate on looking at my writing through only one lens at a time. So if I'm revising and I want to make sure that I have really good word choice in my writing, then that's the only thing I'll be looking for as I'm going through. I won't stop and make corrections on, my spelling or periods. I'm just going to be looking for that word choice. Or if I'm going through and trying to put in similes, or I'm looking, any kind of figurative language, that's the only lens I'm looking at. And if I'm looking at to make sure that the paragraph is in the right order, I need to, move things around, that's the only thing I look at. So I really focus on trying to revise, looking at my work just through one lens at a time.
Once I have an entire story crafted or an entire poem crafted, I leave it sit. Then I like to read it aloud to somebody, or I read it on a digital voice recorder and play it back. After reading it, I tighten some of the language that I think needs to be reworked, and then I like to print my pieces. So if I'm printing fiction, I will actually take scissors and a pen and I'll cut parts of my piece. So the digital manipulation for me, the physical manipulation of the printed text is really essential. Once I have a piece printed and I can cut and alter and really revise in that way, I get a good sense of the piece and where it's moving. Then I usually tape or glue the piece back together. And then I retype it and do my line edits.
First, after sleeping on it, I feel refreshed enough to read like a printed out copy, and then I mark it up, and then I share it with someone else and get their feedback, and then just go back and either free write out some places where I get stuck, or just go back and fine tune it several times. Usually it's labor intensive for sure, so I try to come with a specific goal for each part of the revision process so I don't get too overwhelmed.
I found that revision is really hard. Everyone says it's the hardest part, and I agree. And I really find that revision works best for me when I have someone else read my work and I have multiple other people read my work, because I get fresh perspective. And once I've been with the piece for a while, sometimes I can't see different connections that maybe I've sketched out in the piece, but an outside reader will say, oh, it seems like your whole piece is talking about this. And it brings something to light for me that I can use to go back and make major changes.
As far as revision goes, I would say that revision is probably the hardest part of the writing process and the part that I dread the most, but then when I get connected to it, I find the most energy in my pieces. I've never written a piece from beginning to end and then put a stamp on it and said that's it. It's usually, I can spend years revising a piece, and when I'm ensconced in the writing process, what ends up happening is I just get lost in it, and I find that sometimes I don't eat, I don't sleep, I don't take care of myself very well because I'm so into the writing that it just feels so urgent, and that I have to continue working on that piece until it's done, or until it feels done, or until I can put a period at the end and realize that I'll probably come back to it later. So, binge writing, I guess, would be how I would define my revision process. And I always come back to a piece. I date all of my pieces and come back to the most recent revision so that I can continue working on it.